We've been picturing this all wrong. For the last couple of years, whenever someone said AI was coming for jobs, we all pictured the same thing. A chatbot, a little box on a screen that answers your questions and maybe writes your emails. That's not what showed up on Wall Street this spring. What showed up was quieter and, honestly, a lot bigger. Banks didn't just buy a smarter chatbot. They started handing entire jobs to software. Not tasks, jobs. So here's the question we couldn't stop turning over, and it's the one we want to sit with for the next few minutes. When a bank decides to give a whole job to a piece of software, what happens to the people who used to do that job? Let's decode this together. Start with what actually changed, because the words matter here. The old version was a copilot. It sat next to a worker and helped, like spell check with a finance degree. The new version is called an agent. An agent is software that doesn't just suggest the next step. It takes the next step. It gathers the data, drafts the document, sends it on for approval, and moves the whole thing forward on its own, with a human checking the final result. The industry has a name for stringing these together. They call it an agentic orchestration layer. And yes, that is a real phrase that real adults say out loud in meetings. And we're a little sorry on their behalf. Here's the part that made us pay attention. This May, one of the major AI companies released 10 ready-made agents built specifically for finance work. Not 10 features, 10 jobs. Building a pitch book, which is the slide deck a bank uses to win a client. Clearing a Know Your Customer file, which is the paperwork that proves you are who you say you are before a bank does business with you. Drafting a credit memo, which is the write-up that decides whether a loan gets approved. Those aren't side tasks. They're the things junior bankers spend years learning to do. And it's not coming from one company. Oracle, which makes the software that runs inside a huge number of banks, is now building these same kinds of agents directly into the plumbing. So this isn't a gadget a bank chooses to bolt on. It's becoming part of the floor they stand on. That's the real force at work here, and it's worth naming clearly. For 100 years, a bank grew by hiring more people. The new idea is that a bank grows by adding more agents instead. None of that is evil, it's just math. Software that runs a workflow for pennies will always look tempting next to a salary. So who feels this first? It's not the corner office. The first hit lands at the entry level, the document pulling and name checking and memo drafting that fills the early years of a finance career. And here's the strange part. Those starter tasks were never just busy work. They were the training ground, how a 20-something slowly earns the judgment that senior bankers eventually get paid for. Hand all of it to software, and you save money this year, but you also quietly remove the bottom rungs of the ladder people climb. And this won't stay inside banking. The same document-heavy, rule-based work describes a huge slice of white-collar jobs, from insurance to accounting to legal review. Finance is just early because it has the money to go first. Now, before anyone spirals, let's be honest about what we actually know. No bank has announced it's replacing its analysts with software. The story right now is about adoption, not layoffs. But the direction is hard to miss. One survey this year found that 82% of mid-sized companies plan to spend more on AI over the next 5 years. That's up sharply from just a couple of years ago. And a group of Wall Street heavyweights put around $1.5 billion behind a single venture to push this into more companies. When that kind of money moves in one direction, it's usually telling you where the current is headed. So if you've been feeling a low hum of unease about all this, refreshing the headlines a little too often lately, that's not paranoia. It's pattern recognition. But here's the part that actually matters, and it might be the most hopeful thing in the whole story. Look closely at how these systems are being built. In every single design, the agent does the gathering and the drafting, and then it stops. A human still has to approve the loan. Someone still signs off on the client. The final judgment call still belongs to a person. That's not an accident. It's the whole architecture. So the work that's most exposed is the rote part, the pulling and the checking and the copying. The work that's hardest to hand off is the judgment, the relationship, and the final yes or no. The safest move isn't to out-type a machine at the repeatable stuff. You'll lose that race. The move is to climb toward the part of the job the machine is built to hand back to a person. Here's the one thing worth doing this week, whatever field you're in. Look at your own job and split it into two piles. One pile is the work a careful piece of software could do for pennies. The other pile is the judgment, the trust, and the decisions someone has to actually own. Then, ask yourself honestly which pile you've been spending most of your week in. That's not a comfortable exercise. It's a useful one. A few things worth keeping an eye on from here. Watch the language companies use when they roll these tools out. When they say redeploy, that often means people move to new work. If they lean on the word efficiency, that can mean fewer chairs. The word choice is a tell. There's also the approval layer to watch, because that's where the human jobs are quietly concentrating. The more a tool brags about removing the human, the more carefully you'll want to read it. And here's something you can check in the next 5 minutes. Open a search bar and type your own company's name or your industry next to the words AI agents. See if a pilot has already been announced where you work. A lot of people find out their job is changing from a press release, not from their manager. This story is early and it's moving fast, and we'll be watching it closely as more of these tools land. If there's one habit to build out of all this, it's this. The future of a paycheck leans less on the tasks you can do quickly and more on the judgment only you can be trusted with. Start noticing which one your day is built around. Quick reminder, everything we cover on Decoded Money is for educational purposes only. None of this is financial advice, and we're not licensed financial advisors. Before you make any money moves, do your own research and talk to someone who knows your specific situation. If this was useful, hit subscribe. We do this every week. That's the decode for this week. We'll see you in the next one.